This is Renegade Femme for the Revolution. Renegade Femme. I'm your host, Zuleika. I am your host this week, Zuleika, on Renegade Femme for the Revolution.
This is my first.
I'm joined by Latoya Gamble. Episode. Latoya is owner of Having Your Home Catering and One Body, Many Members, a nonprofit organization she established to help folks that are transitioning out of homelessness into a more stable way of life through advocacy
so difficult
and
right now as I talk
of
to
resources.
Myself, according to my kids, very frequently and loudly. So it's been an interesting start to get this far into this episode. I've started and stopped. I've stuttered. I've left long gaps. I quit. I just almost gave up and said, I didn't say it out loud this time, but I said it to myself. Maybe today's not the day. Let's do this another day. And I gave myself enough time to kind of sit in that, go quick second. And as soon as I did that, the answer came. This is the topic. This stuttering, this pausing, this not being sure that today's the day. This is what this topic is about. Exactly the struggle that got me to even start recording a podcast is the same struggle reappearing again in the form of delaying the recording of this particular episode, and also in delay of something that I've been working on for quite a while because of that unsuredness of once I start, how is it going to go? Do I know how it's going to end? Is it going to be fluid? It's like, oh no, I don't know. I don't know. What I have doesn't seem quite right yet to put out there. So I'm just let me just stop for a second. Let me just hold on to it. Maybe today's not the day. So the idea was to kind of talk to you guys in this podcast about the things that stop us, about the sabotaging of our own goals and ambition. And it's turned into maybe another round of talking to myself, because I apparently need to hear the same from me, from my own voice to myself. I get in my way pretty often, stubborn about it. So I try to not admit to it, but seeing as how I'm kind of glued to this desk and this mic and attached to this board, I'm kind of stuck here. And so that forced me to see how quickly and how deeply and how strong-holdingly, if that's a word, strong-holdingly, I hold on to not getting started. Because it has to be perfect before I can put it out there. And I literally just said, well, even after it's done, it's really not done because it's your thing. And so it's never really finished. There's all these little tweaks and additions and taking out, and something just doesn't look right here. So let me redo the whole thing from scratch. But if I'm going to do it all over again, then I might as well just tear this one down too while I'm at it. So nothing's really out there. So we're right back to where we started from. The fear of putting it out there because it's not perfect. Does that mean that we think we're not perfect? Maybe that's where that self-sabotage comes from, where we get in our own way because we're not quite good enough yet to put it out there, because it's a reflection of us. And if they judge it, they're judging me. So let me make sure that it is perfect, that there's no holes, there's nothing to poke at, there's nothing to peel apart, if it's perfect. But herein is the conundrum. It'll never be perfect. I just said it a couple minutes ago. It's never done. When we do it for ourselves, it is never done. So maybe that in itself is what makes it perfect. Maybe that's perfection. It's something that you can never attain, you can never hold on to. And that's what makes that perfect, because it keeps you going. It keeps you challenging yourself. It keeps you thinking. It keeps you iterating. It keeps you pivoting and moving when you have to. Maybe along the way learning that perfect means something different than what you thought it meant. Doesn't mean it's free of judgment. There's always going to be somebody that's going to not agree with what you're doing, or find that one letter that was put in the wrong place in that last word in that last sentence, and send you a message that, by the way, I just want to point out you made a typo. In that sense, sends you off on a tailspin to try to find everything else that might be wrong, instead of just realizing that maybe that person hasn't quite yet gotten to the new definition of perfect and is still looking for the errors and the mistakes and the wrongs and everything around them. And that doesn't mean that what you created isn't good enough. It doesn't mean that because you created it, it isn't good enough. It just means that person has a lot of time on their hands.
This has been another episode of Renegade Femme for the Revolution. To continue the conversation, join us on Facebook and Instagram at Renegade Femme for the Revolution. You can connect with me, your host, at Zuleika Rendell on Instagram. Be sure to click follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever platform you're listening on to be the first to know when the next episode is released. Renegade Femme for the Revolution is recorded in studio at the Content Creation Center. This episode is produced and edited by Schiller Productions.